Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to Bookspin. The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell. This book came out in 1996. It's a first contact novel with philosophical and religious themes. It's a very character-focused story and it raises some interesting questions about what would happen if we were to discover another intelligent species on another planet that we're capable of reaching, and how we should go about contacting this species, and would we have the right to contact them even, and the potentially devastating consequences that could follow from such an encounter. I definitely enjoyed reading this. It's a solid and thought-provoking read. You could probably basically sum it up as a cautionary tale of a first contact expedition gone tragically wrong. But it's also an in-depth character study of a man who undergoes a profound crisis of faith in God following this experience. So there are two main timelines in this book, and I think we should talk a little bit about the story. We follow these two timelines in turn, and the first timeline starts off around the year 2019, when some mysterious radio signals are picked up at an observatory in Puerto Rico, and these radio signals take the form of exotic, strange, unusual songs. And it soon becomes apparent that this music is extraterrestrial in origin. And while the radio signals aren't intended for Earth, they are traced to a planet in the Alpha Centauri star system, which is just over 4 light years away, which in cosmic terms is actually very close to us. So a band of Jesuit priests, of all people, become very interested in this. And under the proposal of the protagonist, Father Emilio Santos, a crew of 8 are sponsored by the church to go on a private mission to this planet to make contact with the alien beings there who are the source of these radio signals. So from the very start, this is seen as a divine expedition. And Santos sees the hand of God in all the coincidences that lead up to this mission. And he believes that it's mankind's destiny to make contact with these aliens who are believed to be God's other children. So they devise a means of traveling to this planet, which personally I think is a bit ridiculous, but what they do is they convert an old space mining asteroid into a spaceship that is capable of traveling at extremely high speeds. In fact, it only takes them 6 months of space-time to reach Alpha Centauri using this vessel. But because of relativity, this is actually equivalent to 17 years in Earth time. So by the time they reach their destination, 17 years have passed on Earth, and they successfully get there and they find the planet which they're looking for, which is called Rakat. And upon arriving on this planet, we are treated to some very fascinating descriptions of this new world with its exotic abundance of flora and fauna. And for me, this is one of my favorite parts of the book, as it really inspires a sense of wonder in what it might be like to set foot on a new world. So after a while, the crew does indeed make contact with intelligent life, and they discover that there are in fact 2 sentient species on this world. I won't go into a lot of detail about what happens from here, like the first contact part of the story, because I think this is the real meat of the story, and I don't really want to spoil it for you. But this is where things start to get very interesting. But one thing I can't get away from talking about is that, and this is not really a spoiler, but that this whole event is foreshadowed to have disastrous and violent consequences. Okay. And it's not long before we realize that things are going to go pear-shaped at some point on this planet. And I say it's not really a spoiler because this is actually revealed much earlier on in the book, in the second timeline, which takes place in the year 2060, back on Earth in Italy. So at this point, Santos has now returned to Earth, and he is the sole survivor of the original crew of 8. And in this part of the story, the church is undergoing an inquiry into the events that led to the mission's failure and the deaths of the rest of the crew. So Santos has been accused of some shocking and heinous crimes on Rakat. And these events, which when they're first revealed to the reader appear very shocking and confounding, but they gradually have their explanations revealed as the narrative moves back and forth between these two time points. And I think this works very well as a storytelling device. It really piques the curiosity of the reader as you are constantly left wondering, how did things go so terribly wrong? And this failure manifests most palpably in the character transformation of Santos, the main character. So at the start of the mission, he is a happy, jovial and charismatic man of faith with a divine purpose. And he's the original inspiration for the Rakat mission. But after returning to Earth in the 2060 storyline, he is nearly unrecognizable. He's bitter and depressed, physically and spiritually broken, and he's nearly lost all of his faith in God. So after all of his profound suffering on this alien planet and the loss of his friends and his return to Earth, he finds it extremely difficult to reconcile what he originally believed was God's divine wish with the terrible reality of what actually happened on the mission. So I think that Santos's character study is one of the most compelling aspects of the book, and he is by far the most interesting character in the story. The other characters didn't interest me so much, and but in any case, I would recommend this book mainly for that reason, the character study in Santos. It's very thought-provoking, and we've got an enjoyable story to boot. It's a fresh take on that most challenging and ancient theological question that's the problem of evil, with an interesting sci-fi premise and some very tantalizing world building. And the central mystery of the story is very well structured, and the ultimate plot resolution is satisfying to read. So for all those reasons, it's definitely worth reading, but it's by no means perfect. And there are some flaws which I think distracted from the reading experience a little bit for me. Firstly, I think this book was too long. It was a bit of a slow burn, especially the first half of the book. And it's only about halfway through when the mission sets off in earnest. And that's when things start to get interesting. So, yeah, I think this book would have benefited from being a bit shorter. I would prefer a shorter, more tightly focused story. I also think that there are some rather absurd elements to the story's premise that juxtapose rather discordantly with the serious moral and philosophical themes that it's exploring. So we are asked to believe that a Jesuit order of priests have the means and resources to launch a mission across space over 4 light years using a converted asteroid, and they do all this without consulting any other organization on Earth. And moreover, they allow a group of friends who already know each other to form the crew, and they seem like a bit of an unlikely bunch, if I'm honest. And they include a semi-retired mature couple in their 60s whom I'm not really quite sure why they would want to do this. Somehow I find it hard to believe that a bunch of priests can really have the skills to pilot an interstellar spaceship and successfully establish a colony on a distant planet. Anyway, that said, if you can suspend your disbelief and overcome the pacing issues, you will find that it's a very rich and enjoyable novel. It's well worth your time. So I'm going to give The Sparrow a score of 4 stars. Please let me know if you have read The Sparrow in the comments below, or if you've read the sequel, which is called The Children of God. I don't know a lot about The Children of God, but there is a sequel out there. I don't know if it's necessary to continue the story, because I think The Sparrow worked quite well as a standalone. So let me know if you've read that and if you can recommend me continuing the duology. Now for my next book, I won't be using the book spinner. Like I said in my previous video, I'm going to alternate between using the book spinner and making my own personal choices. But as The Sparrow was quite a lengthy read, I'm going to go for a palate cleanser, and I'm going to read this novella, The 6 Directions of Space by Alistair Reynolds. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. It's quite short, so I will let you know my thoughts soon. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again soon for some more sci-fi content.